Well, hello, model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Revell. In this week's build here, I'm featuring this is a 65 Shelby GT350R model. It's a Revell kit that I built. This one's back in 2009, actually. So it's kind of an older build of mine, but it really doesn't look like it. It's one of my favorite kits, of course. If you've been watching the channel, you can kind of see that. Built a number of these Revell monogram Mustangs and really enjoy them. So they're great kits, and of course, you know, it kind of reflects in that as I've done a number of them, and you know, I'm going to do more, of course, because you know that's just part of the course when it comes to a really nice kit. But it also brings up a sponsor of the channel, Hobby Nut Models, as recently I showed it in my last month's video, Stash Ads. They sent me the Revell of Germany version of this that was recently released in the newest decals and everything. And it was a surprise to me, and I really appreciate it. But it's got the latest version of that, and the kit is pretty much the same as this one. But I got pretty excited about that one and researching its particular history of that particular rivalry. That one, I'll build it, and these things are just easy and fun to build. But at the time when I was building this one and the other one as well, which I've shown on the channel, I got it kind of hidden over here off to the side. But when I was building this one, I was just more concerned about just building an R model and, you know, what constitutes an R model versus the street model. But in 65, the street models, Carroll Shelby knew, and he wanted to race these cars. So he knew the rule books and he needed to make his street cars so that he can race in the class as a manufacturer. So when it came to the street cars, he put pretty much a lot of the race components in the suspension, the axle, everything of that nature in them that he wanted, because he wasn't, you know, with the rule book, there were some things that he was allowed and not allowed to do to the race car. And I remember reading somewhere that when it came to the race cars, he was allowed to modify either the engine or the suspension, but not both. So he put all of the suspension in the street cars, you know, all the Coney shocks and the modifications and the really noisy differential and everything in the side pipes. He did all that on the street cars, so that when it came to the race cars, all he really had to do was modify the motor, which was, you know, great. You know, the street car made 306 horsepower, and it was the 289 hypo, but with a swapped aluminum intake, carburetor, and the manifolds or headers and the side pipes. So the motor itself was pretty much as delivered by Ford, and Ford was pretty happy with that, as it was easier and cheaper to warranty the suspension components if there was any complaints or issues with them. They rarely broke. If they had a full-on race motor in it, Ford was a little more concerned about that. You know, having their technicians having to know how to work on this particular race variant of it, and the higher horsepower and tune of that particular car, and you know, people driving them and beating up on them and stuff like that. So having the mostly stock motor, other than swapping out just the carbon intake and a few parts, really appealed to Ford and was much easier for them to warranty. And for Shelby, building a proper 289 for the race versions, after racing the Cobra for a few years and teething those and getting those cars taken care of, he knew, him and his guys, they knew how to get 350 reliable horsepower out of that 289 and even more, but to get it to last a full-on race. So they, you know, had a plan and everything when it came to these cars, and they were very successful. Now, when it came to the R model, they did do some other things. There's no passenger seat, a race bucket seat, Lexan glass all the way around, special rear window here to help vent out the pressure that built up in there. You know, covered up the vents right here, and then, you know, regular gauges in the dash with aluminum panel. And then they also had a 36-gallon fuel tank in the back, besides the, you know, suspension and the, you know, exhaust and everything. And they removed the bumpers. This helped get the, you know, cooling air into the radiator, and you know, just a number of tweaks as they were figuring out what they were doing when they were racing these cars. But they built 36 R models, and all the R models were 65s. There were no 66R models, even though this one has the 66 scoops on it. I added that, and I wanted to do that on purpose because many of the actual R models got these scoops added to them when they started to figure them out, because it helped duct air into the rear brakes, and it was functional and it worked. So a number of them, not sure how many, did get those added to it. Now, whether they were removed when they were being restored or returned back to an earlier version of the car, point in time restoration, they were removed or not, but it really depended. But I did read somewhere that some of them actually had some ducts that they fabbed up and were doing underneath the vehicle to help duct air into the rear brakes. But I guess one of the issues with that was they were right there where the exhaust was, and it wasn't technically the exhaust itself going into the ducts, it was just the heat under there. So, a few racers that tried that ended up scrapping that idea. But this one, being much higher, much into the airflow, worked much better. So they were pretty much functional, but a lot of those were added. This particular car, though, when I try and research the livery, there's one that's called the Mark Donahue car, and it's pretty much the same paint scheme, depending on point in time. But it doesn't say Archway Ford. It says like Donovan Ford or something like that, or Don Hill Ford. But it really depends. And then I've seen Archway Ford 11B, that. So I'm trying to research this particular one. This was kind of more recent research, but not looking into it too heavily, because it was kind of hard to find out what it is. Because I guess Archway Ford did have one sponsored. I believe it was 5R105. But when I saw pictures of it, it wasn't painted blue like this. And I did see a blue one like this painted in some of the pictures. Then there was also mentioned that the Mark Donahue car was actually 6S928, which was a 66 street car converted into a race car. Didn't know too much about that one. But some of these, it's a little hard to research, even though so many of them do exist. But you have to know the specific Shelby serial number and its history. But like I said, it's kind of all point in time. But when it came to me building this one, it was all about the paint and the color. So let's go take this outside and let's see that paint shine in the sun. And we'll go do that here in a second. Well, here she is out here in the sunlight on my rotisserie here, sponsored by BG's Model Workshop. And I love this blue in the sun. This is just a beautiful color. That and their mica red. Just really love this color. It really pops in the sun. For a spray can, this is just some really good stuff. And I'm pretty sure when I did this one, it was before I was using automotive clear, and I'm pretty sure this is to me is clear as well. They're TS13, as I'd used that quite a bit before I switched to the automotive clear. The spray cans are kind of nice, but I really like the control of an airbrush versus an actual spray can. Even though, back when I started or was doing this kind of stuff, the spray cans in the 80s and early 90s were not that great, especially compared to the spray cans of today, as far as paint quality and everything goes. But I still prefer my scale finishes, base coat and clear coat over the sprays. But the Tamiya sprays, they're really hard to beat, really. And I really had fallen in love with this color. As far as blues go, I used to really love the Tester's old engine blue, as it's a nice metallic blue, just like this. But this spray, when I discovered it, just really loved it as well. Just really good stuff. But anyway, here she is out in the sunlight, just popping and everything. And you can kind of see, in my opinion, this color and the paint, really has a lot to do with why this thing had brought me a couple of awards. But as far as the build, it's pretty much right out of the box. I really didn't do anything extravagant with this particular one, but I just love this kit. But anyway, we'll head back inside and we'll continue on. All right, I'm sure that really popped there, so we'll continue on here. But when it came to building this car, I used Tamiya's mica blue spray paint, which is what color this is, and it laid down beautifully and just very, very nice. And these decals actually went on really nice as well, which I was a little concerned about that because sometimes white decals don't do so well. Kind of like this one here where you can kind of see through the white decal on that one into the greenish blue that this particular one is. But this one laid out really, really nice. And, you know, I really didn't do a whole lot of work to this. I mean, of course, you sand off the Mustang 2+2 and 289 emblems that are molded in the body. This one, I didn't do any modifications to the rear valance panel. I did do it on this one as the R models were usually clearanced around the wheels. But it was, you know, each racer or whatnot and their team and crew. So like this one doesn't have the greatest job there, but neither did the factory cars. But this one, I left it alone there. But same thing with the rear valance. I didn't fill in the holes for the backup lights, which don't belong on a 65 or an R model. None of the 65 actually had them. They were mandatory in 66, but that's the street cars. But then there's a rear bumper hole right here as well, which I didn't fill those in. But when I did this one, I did do that, but not the greatest job. But that's this particular one. I've shown this one in a previous video, so you can kind of see that one. But it's got the big and little. This one actually has the Goodyear tires. I love these tires on this kit as they actually match and everything, but the Goodyear blue streaks. Love those tires. There's the 289 with the T10 4-speed and the 9-inch Ford rear end and all of that stuff. And I understand when they made these 36-gallon gas tanks, they actually took 2 gas tanks, cut them apart and used the bottoms of both, flipped the other one over, welded them together, made the top, and then cut the hole for the filler. That's what I understand is how they created the 36-gallon gas tank. And you got the full-on race interior in there with the gauges and the 289 on this. There it is. And this one, I used the cast valve covers that come in the kit. Many of the race cars actually had the steel valve covers. And these Revell hoods, I don't know if, I'm sure many of you know that. If you pull them forward just a little bit, they'll catch and they'll stay open. And then you just back a little bit and then they close. So, it's kind of cool. They can break easily too, but yeah, this one does it as well. Just lift, tug it forward just a little bit. Get both sides to do it. Since I said it's not going to do it. There we go. But there they are. And this one I actually put the smooth valve covers on it from the regular Mustang kit. So, which is more like the race cars. They didn't have the aluminum valve covers on most of them. Really dependent on the race team, but weren't really necessary. And then they'd have the breather tubes welded on them and extended out and everything, which is one of the reasons why they had those valve covers. But anyway, well, this one though, when it came to the paint, it really gets people's attention. This one actually won me a couple of different trophies, and I've got those up on the screen now. This blue, it just really pops and it gets everybody's attention, just catches your eye, which, you know, I love it for that. And of course they have the Cobra that's also in this thing, and I've shown that on the channel, which also won an award because I'm thinking because of the color of the paint and everything as well. But you know, when it comes to this kit, I just can't pass them up. Like I built these two, and I got that one from Hobby Nut Models, and then I did find, I wasn't looking for them, but I have like 3 more of this kit that were parts kits that I got from somebody, and they were somewhat kind of started. But out of the 3, I definitely have 1 full buildable kit, but and lots of parts because of it. But at $5 a piece, when I found them, I jumped on them, so you couldn't skip or pass that up. But you know, this being one of my favorites here, so we'll just pose them up like this here real quick and get a nice shot there. So there we go. There's a beautiful shot. Move this in just a little bit more. And we'll finish up right here with this pose here. And I'm looking forward to building that 3rd one from Hobby Nut Models. So thanks again, Mark. And of course, being a sponsor, check them out in the link in the video description below. But really like to hear your comments on it. And so you guys, thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and everything. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time.